California has giant human figures etched into the desert floor, 171 feet long, that were invisible to the modern world until a pilot happened to look down in 1932. Nobody knows who made them. Nobody knows when. Nobody knows why. And the first thing the United States military did after they were discovered was drive tanks over them during World War II training. It has a 50-mile chain of stone walls running through the Bay Area hills that both the Spanish settlers and the local Ohlone Indians said were already there when they arrived. It has a maze carved into a boulder that looks more Buddhist than Native American, and nobody can identify the culture that carved it. It has an 18-acre geometric pattern in the Mojave Desert that, after 100 years of study, researchers still cannot determine is a sacred labyrinth or a 19th century gravel pit. It has the most controversial archaeological site in North America, where the most famous archaeologist in the world staked his reputation on stone tools dated to 200,000 years ago, and his own wife said it destroyed his career. It has 13,000-year-old village ruins on islands 26 miles offshore, proving that ancient Californians were crossing open ocean 8,500 years before the Egyptians started stacking stones. Most Californians have driven past at least 5 of these sites without knowing they were there. Like this video, if you think California's oldest mystery is the Winchester House, subscribe because the actual ancient mysteries in this state make a haunted mansion look like yesterday's news. Let us break it down. Number 12. Painted Rock at Carrizo Plain National Monument in San Luis Obispo County. A massive horseshoe-shaped sandstone formation rises 55 feet from a flat plain. It functions as a natural amphitheater covered in vivid red, white, and black pictographs that date back at least 4,000 years. The Chumash, the Yokuts, and the Salinan peoples used this site over millennia for ceremonies. 3 distinct tribal groups with different languages and different traditions were drawn to the same rock for thousands of years. Nobody fully understands what the abstract symbols mean. The horseshoe shape creates natural acoustics that amplify sound. Whether the builders chose it for that reason or whether it was coincidental is unknown. One researcher described the abstract patterns as possible star maps. Another interpreted them as shamanistic vision imagery, painted during altered states. Here is the catch. Painted Rock is open to the public only during limited seasonal guided tours from March through May. The pictographs are vulnerable to sunlight and human contact. One of the most significant ancient art galleries in North America is essentially locked for most of the year. You need a reservation to see 4,000-year-old paintings. Number 11. Calico Early Man Site. Calico Hills, 15 miles northeast of Barstow, in the Mojave Desert, and one of the most controversial archaeological sites in the Western Hemisphere. In 1963, Louis Leakey, the most famous archaeologist alive, fresh from discovering 2-million-year-old hominids in East Africa, came to a Mojave Desert hillside and declared that fractured stones embedded in the sediment were unquestionably human-made tools. The sediment was dated at 200,000 years old. If Leakey was right, humans were in California 20 times earlier than the accepted timeline. Over 11,000 stone specimens have been recovered. They resemble crude choppers, scrapers, and hand axes. The majority of archaeologists rejected the claim. Geologist Vance Haynes argued the objects were geofacts, stones broken by natural forces. Scientists dropped 50-pound boulders onto rock samples, crushed them with an 8-ton road roller, and passed them through mechanical rock crushers trying to replicate the patterns. They still could not prove either side. Leakey's own wife Mary wrote that Calico was catastrophic to his professional career. He died in 1972 still defending the site. The site was closed from 2016 to 2023 due to vandalism. It reopened in March 2023 and remains the oldest active archaeological dig in the United States. Would you trust the most famous archaeologist in history or the geologist who said the rocks broke themselves? Number 10. Chaw'se Indian Grinding Rock, Pine Grove, Amador County, Sierra Nevada foothills. A single flat limestone outcrop 173 feet long by 82 feet wide, containing 1,185 mortar cups and 363 petroglyphs. That is the largest collection of bedrock mortars anywhere in North America on a single rock. The northern Sierra Miwok people used the mortars to grind acorns into flour. That much is established. Here is what nobody can explain. Why this rock? There are thousands of limestone outcrops in the Sierra foothills. Why did generations of Miwok over thousands of years return to this one specific stone and grind 1,185 separate holes into it? Some cups are only inches apart, others are 12 inches deep. If each cup required roughly 100 hours of grinding over its lifetime, a conservative estimate, the rock represents over 118,000 hours of cumulative labor. That is 13.5 years of non-stop grinding on one stone. The 363 petroglyphs include circles, animal tracks, wavy lines, and human figures. Many have no agreed-upon interpretation. Whatever drew people to this rock, it drew them back more than 1,000 times over thousands of years. Translation: we know who used it. We know what they were grinding. We have no idea why they chose this specific rock over every other rock in the Sierra foothills, and then spent the equivalent of 13 years grinding into it without stopping. Number 9. Petroglyph Point, Lava Beds National Monument, Siskiyou County, near the Oregon border. A massive cliff face contains over 5,000 individual carvings, one of the most concentrated petroglyph panels in North America. Created by ancestors of the Modoc people, the carvings include complex geometric patterns, animal figures, human forms, and symbols that do not match any known writing system. Some of the symbols appear nowhere else on Earth. Here is what makes Petroglyph Point genuinely eerie. The cliff overlooks the former shoreline of Tule Lake, which was once much larger. The petroglyphs were carved when the lake extended to the base of the cliff, meaning the artists were carving messages into rock that hung over water. Boats or people standing at the shore would have looked up at the carvings. Then, in the early 1900s, the lake was drained for agriculture. The water disappeared. The ancient artists had been carving for an audience and a landscape that the modern world erased. Picture this. You are standing at the base of Petroglyph Point, looking up at 5,000 carvings on a cliff face that rises above dry farmland. 2,000 years ago, this was a lakeside cliff. The water came up to your feet. The carvings were reflected in the surface. People in boats looked up at symbols whose meaning was already ancient. Now, the lake is a field, and the carvings hang over dirt, speaking a language nobody alive can fully read to an audience that drained the theater. If you have made it this far, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this video with your friends and families. It is completely free, and we bring new videos about our country. Number 8. Topock Maze is near Needles in San Bernardino County along the Colorado River. It is the most honestly baffling entry on this list. The Topock Maze is an 18-acre site, roughly 14 football fields, consisting of a series of parallel windrows of scraped earth, approximately 5 feet apart, creating a pattern that resembles a labyrinth when viewed from above. The technique is identical to the Blythe Intaglios, scraping away surface material to reveal lighter soil. But here's the thing. Nobody can agree whether it was made by Native Americans or by 19th century railroad workers harvesting gravel. The Mojave people deny knowing who made it. Researcher Ruth Musser Lopez found that old foot trails exist in undisturbed ground and stop at the edges of the maze, but do not cross the lines, suggesting the maze is more recent than the trails. Yet the design is elaborate, intentional, and consistent with ceremonial labyrinths found in cultures worldwide. A dance ring sits nearby. Trails lead to the site from multiple directions. Edward Curtis reported in 1908 that the Mojave had used the area for dancing, but using a site and creating it are different things. After more than 100 years of study, the question remains completely open. An 18-acre pattern in the desert could be sacred. or could be leftover gravel extraction. Both theories have evidence, neither has proof. Be honest, does the ambiguity make it more interesting or more frustrating? Number 7. Burro Flats Painted Cave in the Simi Hills in Ventura County, and the most ironic location on this entire list. This Chumash rock art cave contains some of the most well-preserved and elaborate pictographs in Southern California. The paintings include geometric patterns, anthropomorphic figures, and celestial designs in vibrant red, black, and white. The cave appears oriented so that sunlight illuminates specific paintings during the winter solstice, suggesting the Chumash were using it as an astronomical observatory, timing ceremonies to celestial events with architectural precision. The Antap Society, the Chumash spiritual elite, may have used this cave for rituals aligned with the movement of the sun. That alone would be remarkable. But here is where it gets absurd. Burro Flats sits on the grounds of the former Santa Susana Field Laboratory, where Rocketdyne tested nuclear reactors and rocket engines from 1947 onward. One of the reactors had a partial meltdown in 1959. The cave has been inaccessible to the general public since 1947 because it sits within a restricted and contaminated nuclear site. Translation: one of the most significant ancient astronomical observatories in California has been locked behind a fence on a contaminated former nuclear test site for nearly 80 years. Chumash were tracking the winter solstice with precision roughly 1,000 years ago. The same hillside was later used to test nuclear reactors. Ancient astronomy and Cold War nuclear engineering occupy the same ground, separated by a millennium. Number 6. Chumash Painted Cave is in the Santa Ynez Mountains of Santa Barbara County. It is known to the Chumash as Alaxuluxan, and it may be the oldest eyewitness astronomical record in California. This small sandstone cave contains some of the finest surviving Chumash rock art, vivid polychrome paintings in red, white, and black. They depict human figures with outstretched arms, geometric patterns, celestial designs, banded centipedes, and what researchers believe may be a depiction of the November 24, 1677, total solar eclipse. The most debated painting shows a black disk surrounded by radiating lines, consistent with a total eclipse and the sun's corona. If confirmed, this would mean a Chumash shaman painted the sky going dark 350 years ago, and the painting is still on the wall. The paintings were created by Alchaclash, Chumash astronomer priests, during rituals whose full meaning was lost when Spanish colonization devastated the Chumash population through disease, forced labor, and the mission system. The knowledge of what the symbols specifically mean died with the people who understood them. Chumash elder Ernestine Ignacio de Soto, great-great-granddaughter of the daughter of the last chief of Xuxtun, a major Chumash settlement, has said her ancestors utilized Painted Cave to leave their mark. She has collaborated with California State Parks and SciArc to create a virtual reality experience of the cave, making the paintings accessible to people who cannot make the steep drive to the site. Can we talk about the cave's current situation? It is protected by a heavy iron gate. The gate is there because decades of vandalism threatened to destroy the paintings. People scratched their names into 400-year-old art. People used flash photography that degraded the pigments. The gate is necessary and heartbreaking at the same time. You can visit the cave. It is a state historic park with free access, but you will peer through iron bars at paintings that were never meant to be seen by anyone outside the Antap Society. The cave is on a steep, narrow road above Santa Barbara. Parking fits maybe 2 cars. The Pacific Ocean is visible in the distance. The contrast between the expansive view and the small, hidden cave creates the feeling that this place was chosen for its secret, not its visibility. The shamans did not want you to find it, and now there is an iron gate to prove they were right. If the Chumash were recording eclipses in caves, the next entry proves their maritime capabilities were equally extraordinary, and about 12,000 years older than anyone expected. Number 5. Channel Islands Ancient Maritime Sites. Channel Islands National Park, Santa Rosa, San Miguel, Santa Cruz, and San Nicolas Islands, 12 to 70 miles off the Ventura and Santa Barbara coast, and the entry that rewrites how old California's human story actually is. The Channel Islands contain hundreds of ancient archaeological sites, village ruins, massive shell mounds exceeding 15 feet in depth and covering acres, stone tool workshops, and ceremonial features. In 1959, archaeologist Phil Orr unearthed human femur bones on Santa Rosa Island, later identified as belonging to a woman who lived approximately 13,000 years ago. She is known as Arlington Springs Woman, and she is one of the oldest human remains in North America. But the profound mystery is not her bones, it is how she got there. Santa Rosa Island is 26 miles from the mainland. There was no land bridge 13,000 years ago. The Santa Barbara Channel is open ocean with currents, swells, and fog. Ancient Californians were building watercraft and crossing 26 miles of open Pacific at least 13,000 years ago, roughly 8,500 years before the Great Pyramid. The Tucson man skeleton found on San Miguel Island in 2005, approximately 10,000 years old, showed evidence of a sophisticated marine-based diet and lifestyle. The shell mounds, essentially ancient garbage dumps made of discarded shells, bone, charcoal, and stone tools, represent thousands of years of accumulated village life. Some of these mounds are hillsides, entire slopes made of the leftovers of daily existence stretching back millennia. Here is what nobody tells you about the Channel Islands. The boats that carried these people across 26 miles of open ocean have never been found. Made of organic materials, wood, reeds, hide, they decomposed long ago. We know the boats existed because the people are on the islands. The vehicles vanished, the passengers survived. That sentence contains the entire mystery. The oldest evidence of sophisticated civilization in California is on islands you can only reach by boat, and the boats themselves are the one thing that did not survive. If you were standing on the Ventura coast, looking at the Channel Islands 13,000 years ago, you would have seen people paddle across open ocean in vessels we cannot reconstruct. Would you cross 26 miles of the Pacific Ocean in a boat made of reeds to settle an island? Or does that require a level of commitment that makes your apartment lease look trivial? Remember the Calico Early Man site at number 11? If Leakey was right about tools 200,000 years old, these Channel Island sailors were latecomers. If the mainstream timeline is correct, these sailors were the pioneers. Either way, someone was doing extraordinary things in California long before anyone was supposed to be here. Number 4. Palos Verdes Chinese stone anchors. On the seafloor off the Palos Verdes Peninsula in Los Angeles County, large donut-shaped stone artifacts were found in 30 to 80 feet of water, approximately 1 to 3 miles offshore. The discovery raises the question whether the Chinese reached California 1,000 years before the gold rush. In the 1970s and the 1980s, divers documented over 30 such stones. They resemble ancient Chinese stone anchors, the kind used on junks for centuries. The stone type is not native to the Palos Verdes area, which means they were brought from somewhere else. Some researchers, including advocates of the theory that Chinese Admiral Zheng He circumnavigated the globe in the 1420s, argue these stones are evidence of ancient Chinese contact with California. The Buddhist symbolism of the Hemet Maze stone at number 3 on this list has been cited as supporting evidence. Others point out that Chinese fishermen were extensively active off the California coast from the 1850s through the early 1900s and are documented to have used stone anchors. The stones could be 500 years old or 150 years old. Geological sourcing could potentially resolve the debate, but nobody has conducted a definitive analysis. Either answer is historically significant. If the anchors are ancient, they would prove transoceanic contact a millennium before Columbus. If they are from the 1800s, they are artifacts of a forgotten Chinese fishing culture that left its equipment scattered across the floor of the Pacific, off one of the most densely populated coastlines in the world. One researcher described the situation as having the evidence on the ocean floor, and the answer just out of reach. Over 30 mysterious stones sit off the coast of Los Angeles. They look Chinese. They could change history. Nobody has bothered to definitively test them. The answer might literally be sitting in 60 feet of water, waiting for someone to pick it up and run a geological analysis. And here is what connects this entry to the next one. If Chinese Buddhist monks did reach California around 500 AD, the Palos Verdes anchors would be their calling card from the sea. But what they left on land might be even stranger. Number 3. Hemet Maze Stone, Reinhardt Canyon, west of Hemet, Riverside County, California Historical Landmark number 557, and the most stylistically bizarre petroglyph in the state. The Hemet Maze Stone is a 46-inch square carving on a sandstone boulder, depicting an intricate maze formed by interlocking shapes that resemble swastikas. Before you react, the swastika predates its Nazi appropriation by thousands of years. It appears in Hindu, Buddhist, Hopi, and Navajo traditions as a symbol of eternity, good fortune, and the cycle of life. The design on the Hemet Maze Stone is more commonly associated with Buddhist art than with any known Native American style found in California. That mismatch is the entire mystery. Since the stone was rediscovered by a rancher in 1914, only about 50 similar carvings have been found, all within a 150-mile radius of each other. 50 carvings, 150-mile radius, no identified culture, no connected settlements, no pottery, no burial sites, nothing except the carvings themselves. One theory suggests Chinese Buddhist monks shipwrecked in California around 500 AD, and proponents point to the Palos Verdes anchors at number 4 as supporting evidence. The mainstream view leans toward an unknown indigenous culture, creating what archaeologists call the Rancho Bernardo style, but nobody has identified who that culture was or what happened to them. Captain Alan LeBaron, an adventurer in the 1920s funded by Hearst newspapers, claimed the Maze Stone was 15,000 years old and was carved by a prehistoric civilization called the Cascadians, who spread from Nevada to populate the world. He was not taken seriously then, and he would not be taken seriously now. But his theory has roughly the same amount of hard evidence as every other explanation, which is close to zero. The stone was vandalized after the 1930s when someone carved a Nazi swastika onto the corner, not understanding that the original design predates the Nazi symbol by at least 1,000 years. The vandal damaged an ancient artifact because they could not tell the difference between a prehistoric spiritual symbol and a 20th century hate symbol. The stone is now protected by 2 chain-link fences. A second similar carving, the Ramona Maze Stone, was discovered by hikers in 1977. Would you hike to see a maze that is 4,000 years old and that nobody can explain? Or does the chain-link fence around a vandalized artifact feel like the kind of metaphor you did not need today? If a single carved boulder can spawn theories about Chinese monks, lost civilizations, and alien visitors, wait until you see what 50 miles of unexplained stone walls do to people. Number 2. East Bay Mystery Walls. Hills surround the San Francisco Bay. They stretch discontinuously from Berkeley to San Jose, with possible extensions as far north as Chico and Red Bluff, near the Oregon border. Over 50 miles are documented, making this the longest unexplained structure in California, and one that nobody has ever comprehensively studied. The East Bay Mystery Walls are a chain of stone walls running along ridgelines through the hills of the San Francisco Bay Area. In places, they reach up to 5 feet tall, built from boulders weighing up to 1 ton, stacked without mortar, and placed in locations that make no practical sense. They are too low for defense, too fragmented for fencing, and they sit on terrain so steep and inaccessible that moving the boulders there would have required extraordinary effort for no obvious purpose. The oldest published mention of the mystery appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle in March 1896. When the Spanish settlers arrived and asked the local Ohlone Indians who built the walls, the Ohlone said the walls were already there when they arrived. In 1904, UC Berkeley professor John Fryer examined the walls and declared them undoubtedly the work of Mongolians, reasoning that the Chinese would naturally wall themselves in. Others proposed a vanished tribe of advanced Native Americans. A physician from Fremont in the 1960s suggested navigational aids for extraterrestrials. Some suggested refugees from the lost continent of Mu. The most recent serious work, archaeologist Jeffrey Fentress's lichen analysis, dates the walls to the 1850s through the 1880s, which would make them gold rush-era field clearing by ranchers. That is the prosaic answer. But the Olone said the walls were ancient before their own people arrived. And near Mount Diablo, the walls connect to stone circles up to 30 feet in diameter. In one place, the walls form a spiral 200 feet wide that circles a large boulder. Field clearing by ranchers does not produce 30-foot stone circles or 200-foot spirals around boulders. Picture this. You are hiking Mission Peak above Fremont on a Saturday morning. Silicon Valley glitters below you. Teslas are parked at the trailhead, and running along the ridge ahead of you is a wall of stacked boulders, some weighing a ton, built without mortar, running in a line that continues over the next ridge and the ridge after that, and then fades into the hillside 50 miles later. You stop and look at the wall. Nobody put a sign here. Nobody built a trail marker. Most hikers walk right past it without noticing. The most famous tech companies in the world are visible from where you are standing, and the wall at your feet has been there longer than anyone can explain. Number 1. Blythe Intaglios, Colorado Desert, 15 miles north of Blythe, Riverside County. America's Nazca Lines and the most profound ancient mystery in California. 6 giant geoglyphs, 3 human figures and 3 animal figures, are etched into the desert floor on 2 low mesas near the Colorado River. The largest human figure is 171 feet long, longer than a Boeing 747. The figures were created by scraping away dark surface rocks to reveal lighter soil beneath, using the same technique as Peru's Nazca Lines. They are the only known desert intaglios depicting human figures in North America. They were invisible to non-native people until November 12, 1932, when Army Air Corps pilot George Palmer looked down during a routine flight from the Hoover Dam region to Los Angeles and noticed giant shapes on the desert floor below him. The geoglyphs had been lying there for at least 450 years, possibly over 2,000 years. Radiocarbon dates obtained by J. von Werlhoff range from 900 BCE to 1200 CE, a 2,100-year window that makes precise dating impossible. Nobody knows exactly who made them. No Colorado River tribal group has claimed to have created them, though some claim to use them. The Mojave and Quechan peoples say the human figures represent Mastamho, the creator of life, and the animal figures represent Hatakulia, a mountain lion spirit, but they do not claim authorship. During World War II, General George Patton selected the Colorado Desert for troop training. His tanks drove directly over the geoglyphs. By the time National Geographic and the Smithsonian sent a team in 1952, visible tire tracks scarred several figures. Fences were not erected until 1974. For most of the 20th century, America's Nazca lines were being driven over and slowly erased. Here is the question that sits at the center of the Blythe Intaglios and has never been adequately answered. The figures are best viewed from the air. They were created by people who could not fly. From ground level, the figures are barely perceptible. You can walk across the 171-foot human figure without realizing you are standing on it. The art was designed to be seen from altitude, but the artists had no aircraft. Either the geoglyphs were intended for beings who could see from above, gods, ancestors, the cosmos, or the act of creating them, not viewing them, was the purpose. The communal labor of scraping the desert floor may have been the ritual itself, with the finished figure being secondary to the process. One archaeologist noted that in many indigenous traditions, the making of sacred art is the ceremony. The product is just evidence that the ceremony occurred. Picture this. You are standing on a low mesa in the Colorado Desert, 15 miles north of Blythe. The temperature is 108 degrees. The silence is absolute except for the wind. Chain-link fences surround the site. You look down at the ground and see a vague outline of lighter soil against darker rock. It does not look like much. Then you check your phone, pull up satellite imagery, and see it. A 171-foot human figure with arms outstretched, lying on the desert floor beneath your feet, older than most buildings in Europe, invisible from where you stand and unmistakable from the sky. You are standing on a message to the heavens that nobody alive fully understands. Like this video, if you just learned that California has its own Nazca lines that were driven over by tanks, a 50-mile chain of stone walls that nobody built and nobody has studied, a maze carved by a culture that left no other trace, a site where the most famous archaeologist in history staked and lost his reputation, arguing that the tools were 200,000 years old, a rock with 1,185 hand-ground holes that represents 13 years of non-stop labor, 5,000 carvings on a cliff overlooking a lake that no longer exists, an 18-acre desert pattern that might be sacred or might be a gravel pit, an astronomical observatory locked on a nuclear waste site, a cave painting that may record a specific eclipse from 1677, 13,000-year-old villages on islands reachable only by boats that no longer exist, mysterious Chinese-looking anchors on the ocean floor off Los Angeles, and a Buddhist maze on a boulder that was vandalized by someone who confused a 1,000-year-old spiritual symbol with a 20th century hate sign. Subscribe, because California's history did not start with the gold rush. It started 13,000 years ago on an island 26 miles offshore, or 200,000 years ago on a desert hillside, depending on which archaeologist you believe. The ancient world is not in Egypt. It is not in Peru. It is on a hiking trail above Silicon Valley, where a wall of stacked boulders runs along the ridge, and nobody can tell you who put it there. It is on the desert floor outside Blythe, where a 171-foot figure lies invisible at your feet and unmistakable from the sky. It is in a small cave above Santa Barbara, where a shaman may have painted the sun going dark 350 years ago. These places are real, most are visitable, and most Californians have driven past them without ever knowing they were there. The ancient structures are fragile and disappearing. The intaglios were damaged by tanks. The maze stone was vandalized. The East Bay walls are sinking into the earth. The Calico site was unprotected for 7 years. Every year that passes without serious study is a year the mysteries get harder to solve. The question is not whether California has ancient history. The question is whether we will bother to study it before it is gone. Now you know. And that changes what the next California highway looks like from the driver's seat. If you want to see the places in California that are actively forbidden, the military base hiding 100,000 petroglyphs behind armed guards, the nuclear island, and the billionaire's retreat in the redwoods, that video is next.